Are you having fun?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, good. Okay, well I hope this is gonna be fun. Is my thing up there, or do I have to make it go? What do I press? Do I press play? There it is. Okay, so I'm gonna talk to you today about space. It's a little bit of a different side of this conversation about innovation and creativity, is that you talk about centers and sort of accelerators or venues, and all of these things have a kind of place-based component to it. And they're supporting innovative activity in a very specific set of ways. And so I'm going to talk to you about space. I'm an architect originally, so this is something that's really close to my heart, is to talk about space. I love space, it's my favorite. So I put up two kind of contacts for my Twitter there. I love tweeting, tweet at me if you want. So I'm here in two capacities today. And the first capacity, of course, is the Innovation District Manager for the City of Boston. If you're not familiar with it, the Innovation District is 1,000 acres on the South Boston waterfront that the Mayor Menino is working to transform into an environment that supports innovation and collaboration and entrepreneurship. So I manage that initiative for the City of Boston, and if you're curious about that, you can tweet @IDBoston and find out more. But also, I'm me, Nicole Fichera, and I'm an architect that cares a lot about creativity and space where that kind of creativity can happen. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a slightly different talk than my normal Innovation District spiel today. Lucky you. I'll start talking about the Innovation District and give you some background on the initiative, because you're all the way over here at BU and it's so far from the waterfront, I know, but it's an amazing place. Come and visit. Essentially, like I said, it's 1,000 acres. It's really big. So on the map there, you can see the Innovation District. You can kind of see it's right next to downtown. It's about the same size as downtown. And if you think about the downtown kind of whole Shawmut Peninsula, the historic Shawmut Peninsula is downtown, it's Theater District, it's Chinatown, it's the Boston Common, it's the North End, it's Government Center, it's all of those neighborhoods. So we're talking about a space which is really as big as all of that. Also, right across from the airport, so we have really easy access to the airport, very important for companies that have international investors or clients or flying in consultants. It's really convenient for them to be near that access. And then, of course, on the Red Line, so connected to the activity in Kendall Square and at Harvard. This is just to give you a sense of what the neighborhood looks like. It's getting back to space, right, and kind of urban design, which is where I love to talk about this. If you look at the base condition of this place, and this is actually taken last year, there's been some construction since then, but there's an incredible range of scales in the different sizes of buildings that are down there. Everything from the massive Boston Convention Center, clusters of old warehouses in Fort Point, to the World Trade Center, again on a huge, huge scale, and then some of the city's new skyscrapers and office buildings. So a range, a mix between industrial and artist space and new commercial space, a really big diversity in the types of people that you can support in a place like this. This is to give you a sense of some of the companies that have moved in. The Innovation District is a 3-year-old initiative at this point. It started in 2010. We've added 5,000 jobs to the neighborhood in that time. 5,000 jobs, just to give you a sense, I think your freshman class here at BU is about 3,800 people. So imagine jobs for every single one of you guys, and then plus another 1,200 more. We've added that many in just 3 years to this area with companies moving in. So those are some of the logos. And then if you look at those pink things on the map down there, the pink buildings, that's stuff that isn't even built yet. So we're talking about 20 million square feet of space that's already built out, those gray buildings. And then 20 million more square feet in those pink buildings that we still have to build. And if you talk about that, that's opportunity on a scale that most cities in the world would just die to have that. They have all of this space directly proximate to downtown, where the venture capital and finance firms and lots of startups and retail are located. 10 minutes from the airport, 15 minutes from Kendall, from Harvard, from these centers of research and innovation activity. I mean, it's exceedingly well positioned with a lot of room to do something new and to do something that we've never done before, something that's related to the needs of the 21st century economy, which is based on relationships, which is based on connections. And so what the mayor and his team identified with this, and what we're working now to do more of every single day, is to use that opportunity to build stuff that has never existed, and new types of spaces that we've never really seen before. So I'll take you through a few of the things that we've built, and then I'm going to talk to you about my personal approach to how I believe that space needs to work in order to support innovative and creative activities. This is against a sense of some of the stuff in the neighborhood, the Institute of Contemporary Art, world-class kind of public art museums, and the Children's Museum. There's public spaces, there's restaurants, celebrity chefs are moving in, Ming Tsai is there, and Mario Batali's coming if you guys are like, Iron Chef nerds like I am. And then a lot of flexible kind of workspaces, incubators, accelerators, co-working spaces, stuff that's specifically positioned to support the innovation economy, and then also to just create a general vibrant urban environment, right? I mean, if you're a company that's working on a new kind of software, or a new kind of technology, or a new sort of science, or a new way of looking at design or policy, you want the smartest people that you can possibly have, which is, first of all, that's why you're in Boston. Boston is the youngest city in the country per capita. Did you guys know that? We have more 20 to 34-year-olds in Boston per capita than any other city in the nation as of the last census. We beat Austin, so go us. 1 in 3 Bostonians is between the ages of 20 and 34. And it's a highly educated workforce. And it's a workforce that all of the companies in the world need those people in their offices, making ideas, pushing innovation, actually out into the marketplace, like Tim Rowe was talking about before, and Boston has that. So in order to really make those people want to be here, which in turn makes the companies want to be here, you have to have an entire urban environment that really feels like a place that belongs to them, where they can go get a beer, or they can work at any time of night, or they can see an art opening, or go dancing. All of those things are just as important as having the kind of venture capital and having the flexible workspaces. It's all part of a package. So we're really looking at 3 kind of key strategies here. We're thinking about a strategy of density and moving in a lot of companies right next to each other, overlapping with Tim a little bit. I work with Tim all the time, so it doesn't, make sense. But thinking about that proximity, like if you're on the same corridor, if you're in the same building, you're bound to collaborate more. So we want to cultivate that density. We want to look at what does housing mean for a 21st century economy. Housing and real estate in general moves a lot slower than a lot of other businesses do, because it's physical, because it's something that you build and then it lasts a long time, or it should. If you're a good architect or a good builder, it should last a long time, because that's sustainable and responsible to build it that way. But if it's going to last a long time, that means that it's not going to evolve and change at the same rate as the rest of the economy can evolve and change. So a lot of what we do is think about, sure, where it's going in the future, but then how do we mediate between an economy that's moving really, really fast and a real estate context which is not moving almost at all? And how do we kind of connect those 2 pieces so that these support spaces can actually do what they need to do to move the economy forward where it needs to be now and for the future? And then the last thing, we're looking at infrastructure in the same way. Infrastructure in cities used to be, how do you get water through? How do you get electricity through? And then how do you get internet through? And so what we're talking about now is the resource that's particularly valuable today, again, in our new economy, is relationships. And a lot of the things we've talked about today have been sharing ideas. And how you can connect with people and how they can kind of move your ideas forward. So we're building literal public infrastructure that is focused on the connection economy. This is the kind of density model. Wow, these diagrams look weird on this. It looks totally different than on my computer. Huh, very interesting. Cool. I kind of like it better. I might steal that. Let's try to change it. Anyways, what we're saying here is that it's a dense approach, right? But it's not a clusters approach in the kind of traditional, I don't know if you guys follow, cluster methodology, like HBS and all this stuff. But if you think about like a life sciences cluster, a technology cluster, you put all these like-minded people together, they have synergies, blah, 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 blah. The Innovation District doesn't work that way. We are not encouraging one specific type of company to move in. We have everything from people making mosaics with robotic arms, to people making toothpaste, to people making chocolate with ginseng in it that's healthy for athletes and gives you energy. We have Rue La La as the biggest employer of fashion models in the city of Boston. We have a lot of technology companies. We also have technology lawyers. I mean, it's a really mixed approach, and we want to cultivate that as much as possible, because what starts to happen is when you put all that stuff next to each other, you start to get stuff at the intersection of the 2 things, and we're seeing sectors emerge that really haven't even existed before, that we don't have names for. So one of the hardest parts of my job is actually managing this sort of database of companies and actually putting sector tags on them, because it's, they just don't fit in the boxes as neatly as you would want them to. This is an example of some of the housing models. We're thinking about innovation housing. which means basically housing, again, that's positioned, how can it connect people better with each other? We have smaller units, smaller private spaces, pull some of the public spaces that you would normally have in your house kind of out, and can you share them with your community? And what that does is you have to pay for less square footage, it brings the pricing down, but it also gives the building sort of public venues where people can connect with each other, connect with their neighbors, throw an event, have conference room space if you're working on a side project and you can't do it at your office. And so we actually have this stuff built now. We have first examples of innovation housing already on the market, sold out, waitlisted. And what's really powerful about this model is you've all been in buildings that have a lobby with like a couch that nobody sits in and a security guard that nobody talks to, right? So in this sense, we're saying take that same space, that same upfront capital investment, put in the same couches, put in one person to man the space, but make them a community manager. And in addition to the couch, put a whiteboard and maybe some free coffee or have a conference room. And all of a sudden you reposition this as a public ground floor space that actually matters to the community around it. It can be overflow space if you're a tiny startup in 1,200 square feet and you're just knocking elbows with everybody on your team and you need some place to go to, you know, brainstorm or have an outside session or have a meetup. We're building those now into literally our housing projects as well. These are some examples of some of the less traditional workspaces. I won't dwell on it too much. Look up Mass Challenge, look up Space with a Soul, look up HQ Boston is a shared space for maker companies. If anyone wants more information, please tweet at me. I'm happy to connect you to all the amazing things that are happening. And then this is a project which is really near and dear to my heart. This is our first piece of innovation infrastructure. So like I was saying before, a new kind of infrastructure specifically focused on the 21st century economy. This is a building, a public civic space that's intended solely to gather and connect the innovation economy together. It has a civic presence on the street the same way as a library or a museum, and inside it's flexible, it can support events of lots of different sizes and different scales. People can personalize the whole space right on every single wall, install speakers or art installations or pods for technology demonstrations or pop-up retail shops. It's really an amenity in the community for innovation to happen, and I hope that as I'm talking about it, hopefully you guys will come up with some ideas for how you could use a space like this or reproduce a space like this. And then, this is a sneak preview actually, so this hasn't even been launched yet, so you guys are, woo, you just got a sneak preview. Go you. So this is a digital infrastructure. This is a map of the Innovation District that shows all of the businesses in the area. We'll be launching this soon in beta mode, but essentially the idea here is if you're new to the neighborhood, or if you want to connect in with the activity, you can go to this tool, you can see who your neighbors are, you can categorize it by sector, you can generate leads, you can figure out who might be hiring, so stay tuned, tools like that coming kind of soon. So all of that points to something really specific for me, which is the Innovation District. It's an environment for a 21st century economy. And the 21st century economy is based on collaboration, it's based on sharing, it's based on connection. The language we're using today, if you did a sort of, Wordle cloud or something of the conversation in this room, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you might have heard competition or efficiency. But we're not talking about that. We don't have an entirely different lexicon for looking at the way we want to make an impact, even in the economic world. We just look at it differently. And Ronnie Cho said, we get it, right? We have a different kind of responsibility. So this concept of sharing is really more important than anything else. And what's really fascinating for us in the Innovation District, now we have 3 years of data that's actually supporting this. So one of the biggest things we found out, does this graphic look, okay, good, I'm glad this one actually works. Basically, of all of the companies that have moved in, we've moved in about 200 or plus new companies into the neighborhood. Less than 1% of those have been shared spaces and incubators. Less than 1% of all the companies. However, 40% of all of those new companies are working out of those shared spaces, which means that 1% of our new companies are supporting 40% of our company growth. That's astonishing. That's a 40% return based on a concept of sharing space. And this is an entirely new way of looking at what is a finite resource. It's something that takes a long time to build. It's very expensive to build space. So we have to be really smart. Every time we make something, every time we reposition something, we need to remember the kind of impact that that thing can have, and we have to make it work as hard as we can. So with that, I have sort of 5 concepts I want you to take with you when you think about space. First of all, space doesn't have to be physical. I'm an architect, but I'm not working on designing physical buildings anymore. I'm working on an urban environment. I'm working on a larger ecosystem. I'm working on policy problems and economics and social interaction and digital tools. So space can have a lot of different manifestations. And the economies of scale that we saw in that 1 to 40, right? If that works in a physical space, the amazing thing is it can work in a non-physical space too. If you can carve out more efficiently a great space for you to work with 20 different companies, because you have more conference rooms and you have more kitchen space than you would be able to afford on your own. Sorry, I just like smacked my microphone. It's like booming. It's weird. If you can do that in a physical space, you can take that same concept and say, okay, what's the tax law space that's around what I'm trying to do? What's the economic space around the investment that's going to be good for what I'm trying to do? And can I get into that in a way that supports me well? Or does it help me to put together a bunch of people to work at scale, to carve out more of that space that can belong to me and work harder for what I'm trying to do? Another thing to think about is, oh my gosh, I like cannot see this. What does that say? Will someone read that to me? Flexible! That's my favorite word about space. I'm gonna make you guys help me through this, thanks. It's tiny on there. Okay, flexible. Flexibility is critically important to space. Again, this is a sustainability problem, right? So you have to think about flexibility now. This room is a flexible room. It could be used for this event now, it could be used for a gala tomorrow, it could be used for a dance, it could be used for whatever. Flexible in the short term, but also flexible in the long term, right? I mean, if you think, architecture has gone in a direction in the last sort of, particularly the last like 20, 30 years, but it's been on this trajectory for a while towards the very specific. So you have buildings where you have a specific lobby, a specific theater, specific offices, specific laboratories, specific types of housing, very, very coded into different kinds of things that people want to do in those different kinds of spaces. But then people change and we get bored, so then those spaces don't work for us anymore. And then we're like, well, now we have to start over or renovate and get all this money again and redo it again and get rid of all that material and move it in and then recycle it, and then where's our LEED rating now? And it's just too complicated. So if you just from the beginning design the space so you understand that it's going to work for different users over time. That's something that is really wonderful as a precedent. We have the 4-point warehouses down in the Innovation District. They're warehouse buildings that were built like in the 1890s. And they have heavy, robust floor plates. They have a really great spacing on their column grid. They have a lot of natural light. They have really easy access. And all of those pieces mean that over time, they've been able to support warehousing and factory uses as they were originally intended. They also work great for housing. They work great for offices. They work great for labs. They're strong enough to support all those things. You feel good in those spaces no matter how you lay them out. So the smarter you can be about how you're building that base condition and knowing that humans change, and knowing that you're not going to be able to anticipate the way that they change, and being comfortable with that uncertainty when you're designing, the more sustainable your project is going to be. Again, not just about physical space, right? If you're building a digital tool for connecting people, you can think about it the same way. People have a certain need today, in a year, they're going to be very different. Is your platform still going to support them at that point? Is a really, really important question to ask yourself. Okay, what's the next one? Integrated, okay, this goes with flexible. Sorry, that's so loud, it's so loud. My voice is loud. Okay, integrated. Integrated is part of that flexibility idea, right? Okay, can you read those ones to me too? Thoughtful, efficient, right, okay. So the more your systems can have, oh, it's multiple alibis, that's the first one, right? Yes, okay, I remember now, phew. Think every time you put, again, doesn't have to be space, right? I'll assume there's no one ever interested in architecture in here. It's probably smart. Don't do it. But if you're building a tool, right, and you build a piece of that tool in, how many reasons does that have to be there? Is it there to support only one technical thing? Is it also there to support a community thing? You know, in the Innovation Center building, the district hall that I showed you, I was on the design team for that space. And so one thing we did is we packed all the building infrastructure into one sort of spine in the middle of the space. So it defines the circulation. It tells people this is a place to move versus not move, but it's also something that holds all the ductwork together, that made it efficient for our engineers, that makes it flexible over time, and it's strong enough to hold speakers, it's strong enough have to hold art installations. So it becomes really a part of the logic of the building on a much more flexible level because it has multiple reasons for being there. It has multiple alibis. Okay, what does it say? Supportive. Okay, and what does those say? Safety. Safety, scale. Oh, how big do you feel? Okay, this is my favorite one. Well, no, they're all my favorite. So safety. Okay, so when you're sharing yourself, it's so scary. It's you're so vulnerable out there. It's terrifying sometimes to be yourself and to come out with an idea that you think might not be good to invest in, or that the administration won't support, or might be illegal. You don't know. You're afraid to talk about it. So the safer you can feel in a space, again, not just a building, right? Like this table could be a space. A meeting agenda could be a space. All of these things are spaces. And if you can make people feel supported, you're going to help them to be their best selves. So if you think about this space, how big do you feel in this space? Do you feel like you could just come up on this stage right now and say something? Do you feel like you're here just to listen? Like, are you small or are you big? It's doing all of these things to you at the same time. So understand how it's affecting you, and then understand when you're creating an environment, how it's going to affect other people in that same way. Ask, how big do you feel? How big does your idea feel in this space? How can you make it feel bigger? Okay, last one is aesthetic, right? Okay, I know this. So this is fun. Back here I met my new friend is a philosophy major. Lauren, is that your name? Yes, Lauren. She's awesome. Okay, so one time I was nerding out and I was reading Proust. Ooh, look at me go. Ooh, I was reading Swan's Way. And I was like, I'm not sure I understand this. I'm just going to let it wash over me. And I had this amazing realization when I was reading Proust. He's talking about sleeping and waking up and things that keep him awake or things that make him fall asleep or how things in his room change and make it really hard for him to go to sleep. He's this totally neurotic little boy. It's fascinating. It's a really interesting book. But all of a sudden it snapped as I was reading this that the word aesthetic, linguistically speaking, is the opposite of the word anesthetic. What? What? Those words are so completely disconnected the way we use them. Anesthetic is like something you inject and you do with surgery, and aesthetic is like a veneer that a designer cares about and nobody else cares about. It comes in after budget and after structure and all of this other stuff, right? They're totally disconnected the way we use them every day. But if you look at those two things and the way they relate to each other as words, anesthetic is the opposite of aesthetic. So what that means is if anesthetic, sorry, tongue twister, if anesthetic is something that makes you go to sleep, aesthetic is something that wakes you up. Isn't that beautiful? If you think about a space that's aesthetic, it wakes you up. If you think about a space that's anesthetic, it's like a classroom with beige everywhere and maroon and sad, or a windowless office with bad cubicles. Those are anesthetic spaces. But the reading room at the Boston Public Library, aesthetic. I'm awake. I can be my best self here. So use that. If the other creatives in the room, please use this. That's what you're about. You're about waking people up and making them pay attention. And every time you build a space, make sure that it's making people pay attention in the way that makes them become something that they didn't know they could be, or they express a part of themselves that makes them normally afraid. So if I can break this all down into one tight little philosophy here at the end, I hope it's fairly tight. Space should give us energy and make us feel safe. That's it. It's very simple. Architects will argue for a long time about many other things with space. I think they're wrong. I think that's it. It should give you energy, and it should make you feel safe. And remember that space can be physical, it can be social, it can be economic, it can be many, many things. That making us, what does that say? Giving us energy. Oh my gosh, this is really hard to, okay. Giving us energy makes us feel strong, makes us feel bigger than we are. Ask those questions about how big you feel in a certain moment, and how can you feel a little bigger? And make us feel safe, encourage sharing our best selves, supporting vulnerability. This is where creativity happens. This is how innovation gets into the marketplace, is that you say, I have an idea, and someone listens and makes a space for you and builds a platform under you, or you build that for somebody else. And then all of a sudden, you can change the world. Thank you. Very nice of you guys. Okay, questions now? I don't even know how long that was. I hope it wasn't too long. Sorry. Question? So the question is, do I work for the city or is it private? I work for the city. I work for the mayor of Boston. Proud to work for Mayor Menino. He's done great things for the city. Also, if you are registered to vote, please vote on Tuesday. There's a mayoral election. This is a big time for Boston. But yes, I work for the city. This is a very entrepreneurial initiative. It's not a traditional economic development or planning initiative. It's at the intersection of both. If there are sort of policy people that have more questions about that, I'd be happy to talk a little more kind of offline about the more specific things that we've done. But essentially, we focus on creating connections, we focus on creating frameworks. We don't focus on having big economic development funds or investing directly in companies. We do carve out innovation spaces. We're really focused on building an entire neighborhood as a platform and enabling people to build stuff on top of that, which then supports the kind of activity that they're doing with their robots or toothpaste or whatever it is. Oh man, so I saw you first.
So I understand that you guys are doing a lot of industrialization, but how are you guys being sustainable at the same time and taking account like a very environmentally conscious society into this, especially in Boston where we're taking a big initiative as well?
Yeah, so there's 3 founding principles for the Innovation District. One is the idea of an urban laboratory. It's a place where we test ideas. One is the idea of shared innovation, that the economic impact we have should be something that's not just confined to the neighborhood, but also spreads its impact to the rest of Boston and the region and beyond. And the third thing is sustainable leadership. I mean, it's critically important to where we are now. It's really important for the Innovation District because if sea level rises, we are literally underwater, so it's very important to us. There is some stuff coming down the line specifically related to this on a district energy sharing program. There's the Eco Districts Summit in November where we're going to be talking about it a little more specifically. But one of the amazing things about having 20 million square feet to build is that you have room to do it right, from the beginning. And so there are very strong kind of sustainable standards for construction in Boston. We have some specific projects that are showcase projects for clean tech and clean energy, like Fraunhofer has a building technology showcase, which is just open. The governor just went there the other day. It's an amazing, amazing place. So I think we're doing it on a lot of fronts. Part of it is supporting the clean energy clusters and companies and supporting things like Fraunhofer, but then also making sure that our development is not only subscribing to LEED and sustainable standards, but again is flexible and it's going to be changing over time in a way that means that we're going to do it right the first time. Okay, here.
Hi, my name's Fran. So this principal.
Hi. I'm going to use my sexy microphone voice. So this is a leadership conference. As leaders, I know this is probably like a super long answer, but if you could just give us like pointers, how can we make a space, whether it's physical or not, more accessible, safe, and like aesthetic for people who come to it?
Look at you use aesthetic. You used the word that I said. That's great. That's amazing. Wonderful. It's really basic. It's very basic. Like if you just think about like the next meeting you run, right? You guys are all young leaders. If you think about the next meeting, think about who's going to be at that meeting. Think about what they're going to be scared of. Think about what's going to be bothering them. And then think about what you can do as a leader to shape an environment where that doesn't bother them so much anymore. And sometimes you need to pull that out of people. Sometimes you can do it just in the framework of the way you've structured an event. I think, actually, I have to give a little shout out to Raul and team here. I think you guys made a really nice, supportive, open event here. So can we just get a little round of applause? Nice job. Good example here. It's very human. It's fundamentally, it's asking yourself human questions. I wish that I could give you a more technical answer than that, but there isn't one, so that's my answer.
How would you exactly define space, like which you were referring to?
Is to define space?
I'm not sure what the space is.
Okay, yeah, it's a big question. I've asked myself that before, actually. It's hard. I have a good definition for innovation, actually, but I gotta work on the space one. I think space, first of all, can be just a room like this, right? It can be a venue. But in a more conceptual sense, what I'm trying to say today is that I'm an architect, so I'm like inordinately focused on physical space, and I don't expect all of you to feel that way. But that space is a lens, thinking spatially about other things, means space in that case is a platform, right? Or it's a framework. It's an underlying structure that you're creating that people are sort of existing in or having ideas in or interacting in. And the way that you shape that, whatever that thing is going to have a lot of effect on the people that are in it and their ability to do good work or to be their best self. So it's sort of taking the idea of space like as a room and then saying you can apply this to a lot of many different things as a way of looking at kind of human interaction and fostering creativity. It's esoteric, I know. Hope that's okay. Okay, one more, and then I think I'm probably like over, right? Yeah, I'm definitely over.
Oh my god, microphone is scary. First of all, I want to say thank you. This is awesome. I took a bunch of notes. So I'm curious about the area that's being developed downtown. You're talking a lot about engaging like this young, innovative group of people. Something I think about often being a college student in Boston is how we take up space here, and like this is our community, but also there's entirely another community that has been here far before us, and a lot of us come through, take advantage of this amazing city, and then leave. And when you're talking about these like community spaces and civic spaces, I'm just curious about like accessibility, and is it only like these technological companies and companies that are producing products that have access to these spaces, or can these spaces be used for like grassroots organizing or like smaller organizations that have been here for a longer time?
Yep, short answer, yes, absolutely. I think that some of the more traditional kind of innovation, incubatory spaces have been very focused on tech, and tech happens to be a really supportive community for this type of stuff, probably because it's rapid growth and it's low kind of capital costs other than human talent, right? So it's a good investment. Like you can get, an investor can get their money back because the company's going to grow really fast and scale really fast. And so I think the supportive ecosystem has grown up around tech. But that building, the Public Innovation Center District Hall, those public spaces that are in the bottoms of the residential buildings that I was talking about, we're building them into our hotels, we're building them into as many different kinds of buildings as we can. Yes, should be used for grassroots things, should be used for creative meetings and your own mini TED Talks and Thanksgiving with your friends. It could be for a lot of different things. I don't know if they'll let you do that. If you want to do Thanksgiving, ask me and I'll connect you, and then I'll see if I can make that happen for you. But yes, that's the non-sector approach is really important for us. We want platforms which are sort of sector agnostic, and if a certain community needs more support in a different kind of way, then we can talk to them about that, right? Like, so we have Dry Dock Shared Labs, which is a shared laboratory spaces for small life sciences companies that need access to very specific hard resources for laboratory work. So there are examples like that that are more specific, but in general, the answer is it's not sector specific, and you should take advantage of them. To the first part of what you said, that you're taking up this space for a small amount of time kind of in your life, I have two things to say. First of all, it doesn't have to be that way. Boston's an awesome place to live, just saying. If you want to hear more about that, talk to me, tweet me. But the other thing is, a metaphor that I've used in my head before to think about college populations in particular is that you're a river, right, a little bit, right? So if each of you is one little sort of like silt particle in this like big, beautiful river of talent that's flowing through the city of Boston or flowing through your individual institutions, each individual piece is not there very long, but the river is always there, right? And rivers carve out a lot of space as they move through, and they make major evolutions over time. And that's something at Northeastern, and I went to Northeastern. I know I'm a BU, but I'm a Husky, whatever. But at Northeastern, I've used that metaphor when I'm talking to the administration before, is saying to them, look, I know that this one student's complaint maybe is not today that important because they're going to be gone in 3 years or whatever, but the river of the student body is always there, and it's carving out space as you're pushing back on it, and thinking about your time in Boston that way might be helpful. That you might not be here for that long in your life, although I hope you will consider being here for a long time. But your sort of presence and the presence of this demographic is here, and so the more impact that you can make while you're here, the better, because it's always going to kind of keep flowing and keep evolving. Is that okay? Can I stop now? I feel like I've got the Baratonde is next. I can't take up this time. He's amazing. Thank you guys so much.